Part-2, Chapter-3. Indra became increasingly interested in raga theory, but he was almost entirely self-taught and relied on his ear and experience. "I'm not so expert," he admitted. "If a musical pundit came to my kirtans, he may be able to criticize me for taking liberties and breaking certain rules of the ragas I'm singing. But I'm doing what sounds good to me." Raga, he learned, was essentially a collection of notes used as the basis for creating melodies, like a painter's palette. He was fascinated by how a rag palette could have a varying number of notes from 5 to 7, and how there could be different notes in a different order for the ascent to higher or the descent to lower pitches. Raga actually means rasa, he said, and rasa means a mellow. So a raga is a configuration of notes which produce a certain mellow. There are different vibrations, a certain number of vibrations allotted to different notes. Of course, it's a rather complex science with respect to Western music because there's much more subtle variations taken into consideration. His approach was kinesthetic, mixing sound with sight. Quote, "The rasas produced can be related to various colors in a painting. Certain notes carry with them certain vibrations and can be given a color value system, so to speak. It's just like if you have so many blues together, different shades of blue. There may be a little touch of purple and a little touch of red, and maybe a small amount of green and yellow, something like that. And the kind of mood that you get, the effect it has on the viewer, is different than if you have a lot of red, a picture with a lot of red and orange. So there are different ragas, millions of ragas, though today there are very few, maybe 40, used out of the 16,000 mastered by the gopis. The classical Indian system of ragas is thus certainly useful in kirtan, he said. But real raga kirtan goes beyond just musical consideration. It is kirtan on the platform of bhava, devotion with spontaneous feeling. Raga means attraction, affectionate attachment. In kirtan, it refers to melodies that create an attractive atmosphere to affect the heart and increase affection. Different ragas generate different varieties of atmospheres that increase one's affection toward Krishna, toward the holy name. That was all from the standpoint of the person chanting. Quote, "But when we speak of audience and generating an attractive atmosphere to increase the affectionate feelings that the audience has toward our kirtan performance, who is the audience? Krishna. Krishna is the audience. Radha Krishna. So the idea is not so much that we are attracted to the kirtan. The idea is to perform kirtan in such a way that attracts Krishna to the expression of our love expressed by the atmosphere that we generate for his pleasure. So first of all, we should have some idea of what pleases him. Of course, Krishna doesn't need our patrams, leaves, and pushpams, flowers. He is after our bhakti. So here again, the bhakti element is the most important consideration. And that principle of attraction extends. When you satisfy Krishna, you satisfy the whole creation. Thus, everyone is automatically pleased and attracted by performing Sankirtan solely for the pleasure of Krishna. Simply for the consideration of Krishna's pleasure without any other consideration involved, that is rag kirtan. It has to go beyond just the musical consideration of raga. And in the matter of Krishna's pleasure, he said, the main ingredient is the heart, to sing from the heart, to sing out of a desperation to somehow or other get Krishna's favorable, merciful glance. Of course, he noted, each devotee was different. Practically any answer can be given from different angles of vision, and some people will appreciate one angle of vision more than another. It's all basically individual as to what an individual is able to ascertain to be favorable for his progress on the path of Uttama Bhakti. Real Raga Kirtan means to perform Kirtan with the greed to follow in the footsteps of the gopis of Vrindavan, who perform Kirtan exclusively for Krishna's pleasure in many varieties of ways, with many varieties of complex musical accompaniment. Ruchi, Ayendra considered, taste, was a matter of, quote, attraction and of affection. And he described two types mentioned by Srila Chakravarti Thakur in his Madhurya Kandambani. Quote, the first, lower form is when one is attracted to the performance of kirtan or the performance of deity worship, meaning the quality of musical instrumentation and singing, or the standard of paraphernalia. If someone is singing nicely and there is nice mridanga playing, or a nice classical raga with perfectly executed alankars, ornaments, but these are all accoutrements. If someone's attraction to the kirtan or taste for chanting in kirtan is based on accoutrements, which are based on one's own relishment, then that is considered a lower form. Because if the accoutrements are not there, one becomes disinterested, loses his attraction. He doesn't gain any taste from it because his taste is based on externals, in consideration of one's own personal preferences. Some people's accoutrements will be heavy metal, others will be classical Indian raga, depending on one's personal tastes and appreciation. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. But then there's a higher type of ruchi, the taste one derives in devotional service when one experiences attraction simply by chanting without consideration, if it is a so-called good kirtan with nice accoutrements, by the relishment of nam bhajan, regardless of whether or not a tone-deaf, not-so-good singer has much musical skill, simply taking pleasure in participating in the kirtan on the basis of his attraction to nam. He wants to relish the Harinam Sangha. He is not interested either one way or the other, not concerned whether it is ornamented nicely or not ornamented at all. He is simply concerned with relishing the performance in the association of Nam. That is a higher form of ruchi than ruchi based on externals. But by watering the root of a tree, all the leaves and branches are automatically satisfied, so the real principle of Rag Kirtan is not a discussion concerning either the higher or lower grade of ruchi. It is a discussion concerning how to perform Sankirtan to attract Krishna's attention toward you. The externals, he pointed out, were like a bunch of zeros. Quote, but if you put Shuddhanam before the zeros, then the more zeros you have, the better. You get 10, 100, 1,000, 1,000,000 times the benefit. Purity is the force, that's the point. And if you are lacking purity, in other words, if you are not chanting Shuddhanam, then you should consider how effective is our kirtan anyway. Not very effective, not very forceful. Ayendra had broadened his approach since his days in New York, when he had kept to more strictly traditional melodies. Quote, he was always increasing his vocabulary of ragas, observed Ram Roy, who had first come to Vrindavan in 1986 by invitation and eventually stayed most of every year. Quote, if you look at the tunes he was singing over the years, he kept bringing new ones forward. He would either discover a tune or compose a tune or some combination of both. He would choose a particular tune and then relish the bhav of that tune for some period, usually months or part of a year, and then when he felt that he had sufficiently utilized or worshipped that tune properly, he would chant another. Another one would come. So there was an ever-increasing vocabulary of tunes that he had at his command. Over the years, Ayendra sang the Mahamantra in almost 100 different melodies. Some came from hearing other kirtaniyas, such as Vrindavan's renowned Kokan Baba, whose kirtans Aindra recorded and then studied in his room. Quote, he used to come and make so many cassette recordings of our kirtans, Kokan remembered, smiling. Other melodies came to him when he was chanting. Quote, from his japa would come a melody, one of the kirtan devotees described. It would just appear out of the holy name, and to be able to keep hold of that melody, he would have to grab the harmonium and play and record it, because as quickly as it would come, it would go, like a stream of thought. He'd have to catch the tune, record it, and then carry on with his japa. And then sometimes he would expand on it later. One recording is even called the japa tune, and at least 3 other melodies came out like that. Melodies could come from almost anywhere, songs he heard through his window, Bollywood tunes, kirtans from visiting musicians, one from a Muslim who wrote devotional songs dedicated to Krishna. Even India's National Republic Day anthem, the melody of which he adapted for the deities on Republic Day, or Jingle Bells, which he sang one Christmas morning, and he would sometimes combine melodies from different sources. Quote, Prabhupada said that any tune is okay, he said, as long as the chanting is sincere, and I live by that instruction. If I do happen to sing some that are supposedly film tunes, they are generally ragas. And anyway, those rascals stole those tunes from Krishna. They all belong to Krishna. So I'm stealing them back and using them in Krishna's service to help inspire Harinam Sankirtan. And following in the footsteps of the gopis, who mixed ragas and created new ragas beyond the old established ones, sometimes I mix the tunes like a melody just to create variety for Krishna's pleasure. He was capable of a wide range of musical variety and always strove for something new, something fresh, something different, something sweet and interesting. Quote, why is it that we offer Krishna a feast and not just khichdi? He asked. Every day just khichdi and khichdi and khichdi. Of course, Krishna was satisfied to eat Sanatana Goswami's wheat balls without any salt, because it was offered with devotion, but that is all he had. Do you think the gopis offer only khichdi to Krishna every day? Why is it that Radharani never cooks the same milk preparation twice? To entice Krishna, to whet his appetite, to enchant him, to make him think that she really loves him. So in the same way, when we make a nice feast for Krishna, we offer him nice samosas, pakoras, chutney, and at least 10 varieties of sabji, bitter sabji, sour sabjis, salty sabjis, sweet rice, kheer malai, kheer mohan, gulab jamans, sweet balls, ladus, so many different varieties. He also compared performing kirtan to dressing the deities. Quote, Harinam is our deity, he explained. Just as we decorate the deity with clothing and flowers, we decorate Harinam with different tunes and musical ornaments. There should be a variety of outfits, something new, something fresh, something different in each day's decoration, and a raga could be used to enhance the particular aesthetic. Quote, if Krishna enjoys only simple presentations, then why do we change the deity's dress twice a day? He asked. It is the same Krishna, but the new dress allows us to appreciate him in a fresh way. Similarly, when we see Krishna decorated in different ragas or tunes, the attractive atmosphere created enhances our appreciation of the beauty of Krishna in the form of his name. Instead of decorating him in only one dress, a red dress all the time, we decorate him sometimes in a blue dress, and Krishna looks really far out when he is dressed in blue, or a yellow dress which contrasts so stunningly against his black body, or sometimes in a pink dress which brings out his beauty in a slightly different way. Sometimes Krishna is dressed with simple ornamentation, sometimes with complex ornamentation. The simple ornamentation makes his bodily form look a little more complex, whereas the complex ornamentation brings out his simple beauty and sweetness. In the same way, we can bring out the unique beauty of the holy name with various decorations of ragas. Still, though Aindra's knowledge and use of a wide variety of ragas extended and deepened over the years, he never lost his appreciation for the first melodies that Srila Prabhupada had introduced, which had been sung exclusively when Aindra had joined in D.C., and he would recommend them as the best place to start. When a new 24-hour kirtan member shared his uncertainty about what tune to sing during his shift, Aindra replied, "The best melody is Srila Prabhupada's melody," referring to Prabhupada's simple classic. Although some ragas are associated with different times of the day, quote, "That raga is sung in the early morning," he corrected one kirtan member at the end of his evening shift. He didn't always keep that connection. "Sometimes," he said, "but not always. Because my precedence is the passage in the Govinda Lilamrita where the gopis and Krishna during the Rasa Lila in the middle of the night were singing all ragas without any consideration of time or season." Depending on how you look at it, there are basically only 10 or 8 different parts of the day, he pointed out. But the idea is that Krishna has what is called Astakaliya Lila, 8-fold pastimes. So the different ragas ultimately are meant to complement his various moods in the performance of his different pastimes. Aindra also had his own personal preferences. When he heard Shyamananda Das, a classically trained Indian musician, practicing Rag Bimpalashri in his room one day, he told him how pleased he was to hear someone singing so expertly. It was, he said, quote, "my favorite raga." And later in Mayapur, when Lokanath Swami was leading a rousing kirtan with a raga-based melody in front of the Panchatattva, and the crowd chanted in thunderous response, Aindra turned to a godbrother who was more into Western melodies and said, "See, that's the power of a raga. That's the power of singing melodies based on the raga system." Over time, he incorporated different elements in his kirtans and developed a new style. Quote, "Just like there is progressive rock," he said, "I have more or less named my way of doing kirtan as progressive kirtan, a mix of Bengali-style kirtan and down-home, stompin', Braj-Basi kirtan, which is inimitable. You can't imitate it. I have been influenced by a northern Indian classical style of kirtan called Khayal, which as far as I understand means fantasy, a devotional style requiring great proficiency in which a singer can express a raga elaborately in different tempos, allowing the musician to expand on the raga for a long period of time. I haven't gone deeply into the Khayal style, but I have incorporated elements of it in my humble attempt. It leaves more room for improvisation than, say, the Drupad style. The Drupad style is more rigid to the rule, to the letter of the law, whereas the Khayal accentuates the spirit of the law. In the Khayal style, you may bend the rules, add an extra note to a raga, for example, for the purpose of generating inspiration or bhava. That kind of reflects the gopis' mixing of ragas or creating new ragas. The basic principles of the raga remain intact, but some extra note may be added to enhance the flavor, to show the rest of the raga against that note. In that way, it tends to enhance the beauty of a raga. He distinguished between 2 types of kirtan, which he said, quote, "can be compared to the Maha Ras Lila and Sharad Purnim Ras Lila." Kirtan with many new people, guests, people from different lines, people who are strangers to one another, that is comparable to the Maha Ras Leela, in which Krishna was dancing with so many types of gopis from so many different groups. Kirtan with a more intimate gathering of like-minded devotees can be compared to the Sharad Purnim Ras Leela, in which Krishna was dancing exclusively with Radharani and her girlfriends. The key factor was that Kirtan be offered exclusively for the pleasure of the deities. Aindra compared Kirtan to food, which the cook must offer to Krishna before enjoying. Quote, some people like to hear themselves singing, he noted, but if you are so busy liking yourself singing, then maybe Krishna doesn't like to hear you singing so much, because you are already enjoying that which is actually meant for his enjoyment. The gopis' only focus was to perform kirtan for his pleasure. Quote, I could see the growth of his kirtans, Kormarupa noted. When you paint by numbers, that's not being creative. But Aindra's kirtan started to evolve. He wasn't confined by singing someone else's tunes. He started expressing these wonderful melodies. Quote, but few musicians could stay with him. And, as had been the case in New York, not everyone appreciated Aindra or his efforts. In fact, remembered Raseshwar Das, who began attending Aindra's kirtans in the late 80s, during that time, into the early 90s, there were very few people who really appreciated him, even among his godbrothers.